So these are the tests, or the steps, I should say, that we're going to go through when doing cloud-based penetration tests. Again, some of them you may or may not be able to accomplish, but this is kind of an overall list for you. The first thing you're going to want to do is actually start off by looking at any lock-in issues. Now, what we mean here is that we're looking for situations where the subscriber can't switch to another CSP. We want to check the service level agreements between the subscriber and the cloud service provider to see if those provisions can be made in case it needs that you need to switch over. Many times you're going to be locked in, which if the CSP is attacked, obviously is going to affect everybody. And why this is beneficial to know is that if the CSP itself is being attacked, you need to be able to have the ability to switch over or roll over, or even know if you can do this to a different provider. We'll then want to review governance issues by looking in detail at the SLA agreement that the CSP provides. We'll track the record of the CSP to determine things like any discrepancies in the SLA clauses and their implementation, as well as possibly vulnerability assessment processes that they have in place. We'll also want to look at roles and responsibilities of the CSP versus the subscriber, especially when it comes to managing the resources like network bandwidth, storage, processing power, memory management, virtual machines, and also possibly cloud asset ownership. We'll then go through and look at any cloud compliance issues that might arise from the usage of cloud storage or backup services. This is going to be looking at compliance to PCI or SOX, making sure that the CSP complies with those regulations. It's, again, remember, it's not just about you. And you'll also want to review things like who's responsible for what, either the CSP or subscriber, when it comes to maintaining the compliance. We'll then want to check for cloud resource isolation. Check to see if activities from one subscriber can affect another subscriber. And we're going to, again, find this inside of our SLA agreements. We're going to check the CSP's client feedback and possibly reviews online. We do a little bit of reconning of the CSP. We'll then want to go through and check for any anti-malware applications that are installed and updated on every device that the CSP provides. How often do they do the updates? Do they have outbreak alerts or automatic scans that take place? We'll check to see if the CSP has installed firewalls at every network entry point. Do they by default turn ports and protocols on or services? We need to review those and make sure that the ones that aren't being used are turned off. We should also check to see if the CSP is using strong authentication. You know, how long are the passwords for remote users? Do they deploy two-factor authentication, even for one-time use? We also want to check to see if the CSP encrypts file transfers to and from the cloud servers. And speaking of encryption, we'll want to make sure that the files being stored on the cloud servers are encrypted. Is that turned on by default? We'd also want to determine what the encryption algorithm used is for encrypting the data. And for that matter, we need to know where the algorithmic keys are stored. And while we're at it, we're going to want to check to see if the CSP or if the subscriber is in charge of holding those keys for the encryption. We'll also want to check for data retention policies of the CSP. Sometimes CSPs are bound by law to disclose data to third parties. If we delete something from the cloud, how long do they retain it before it's really gone? And since we're dealing with a cloud environment, we now have to look at ourselves. We're going to check with our users to make sure that they're all following what we refer to as SIP, or Safe Internet Practices. You know, do we allow users to turn off firewalls or to disable anti-malware applications when connecting up to these cloud-based environments? We'll want to make sure that the staff is updated regularly or educated. We want to check to see if training is being done with your users to educate them about not engaging in or how to respond to risks such as password sharing or phishing emails or downloading files without verifying where they came from. To me, this should be taught almost weekly as fast as things are changing and new malware and ransomware is coming out. In fact, what a great idea for the IT staff to send out weekly newsletters. Hey, everybody, did you know this is out there. Think of it this way too. Sorry, I'm going to take a little side note here, but think of it this way here is you're also showing end users how to protect their own systems at home. I'm a big proponent about educating and sharing what we know with others to help protect them. We're not in this one to say, haha, Johnny got nailed. We're here to help Johnny. And of course, then we're going to want to obviously do a complete vulnerability assessment. We're going to perform a pen test on each of the components as if they were physical machines. And so for those steps, you would want to go back through all these different modules we just talked about. Again, you're going to modify your pen test based off of the requirements or restrictions that the CSP may have. We'll also want to go through and check to see if the CSP offers any type of auditing features, as well as evidence gathering features. Now, one of the cool things that you may want to consider here is, does the CSP offer you the ability to clone a virtual machine? And you may be thinking, Dale, why would I do that? Well, cloning a virtual machine can actually minimize your downtime if you get a machine that's affected, or if you're trying to look at what happened to a particular machine. Let's clone it and look at it offline. And of course, we can also go through and automate the cloud testing environment by using some third-party tools, such as Core's Cloud Inspect. Dell makes one too called Dell Cloud Manager, and I'm sure other people are going to come up with some other ones here that I'm not aware of, but you may want to look into those services. Some of your CSPs may actually offer them as well. And then of course your next step is, wait for it, yep, you're right, it's documentation time. Hey, come on down, we're going to document what we just discovered. No way, Dale, that's so cool. Tell us more about documentation. Well, hold off there, little buckaroo. We'll talk about that in the next module.